So, welcome everybody. Self-Web Score is in session. I am here today joined by Laura Croudace. Did I say it right, Laura?
You did, yeah.
We've known
Can
each
say
other
however
for
you
years,
want.
and I've only just realised I don't know how to pronounce her surname, and I feel really bad. But yes, Laura, so awesome to have you here. As soon as I knew I was doing a podcast, and especially when I came to this episode about becoming more ambitious and following through, I was thinking, who do I know who I would love to have on? And then I was like, oh God, yes, Laura. We always love having a chin wag about anything and everything, really. But you are our guest teacher today. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, what your title is, what your business is, and what led you there.
Thank you for having me. It's so lovely to be with you. Yes, a bit about me. What people often don't know about me is that I am a mom to two boys that are 18 and 14. Recently, I had builders in the house doing some work. And when I pulled up on the driveway, I said, "Oh, do you need me to help you get in the house?" They said, "Oh, no, your boyfriend's already let us in." And I was like, "I don't have a boyfriend here." It was my son. They thought that my son, who looks a lot older than 18, was my boyfriend, which is a bit awkward. Aside from being a mom, which I love, I'm the founder of Social Storie, a storytelling agency that focuses on the human based stories of products, companies, and organizations, really laser focus on the impact of an organization's work through the lens of the human story.
Mhm.
And then that turns into go to market strategies, films, essentially growing awareness of an organization's work or product, which enhances their lead gen and essentially makes them more money, increases their income.
Awesome. Okay, tell us then an example of some of the companies you might have worked with that people might know if they're in that industry.
So that's really funny you say that. One of the things I have on my website, and I'm not expecting you to have seen it, is that I'll never talk about the people I work with.
Oh,
The reason for that, when I was thinking about setting the company up, I knew if people worked out who I was working with, they'd try and copy their work. The company I work with is different, but unless a client posts about me, I'll never let the cat out of the bag because some of the work that I do is helping create new products, especially
yeah.
agentic AI products. And so it's always been like hush hush under the radar. And I actually got this idea when I was a makeup artist many years ago. I was working with a fantastic makeup artist who I'm really good friends with to this day. She said to me, "Do you realize that no one ever talks about where mascaras are made?" And I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because almost all mascaras are made in the same factory." And at the time, I didn't know if we still have the brand Bourjois. It was in Boots and
Oh,
things,
yeah, I remember.
but that was owned by Chanel. And it was all Chanel products, but at like a really cheap price point. And as a teenager, as a makeup artist, I was like, that's so interesting. Whenever I start my own company, I'm just going to have this like cloud of mystery of like who I'm working with. And I didn't want anyone to know, like, I'm quite a private person. People think I'm very extroverted,
Mm.
but actually, I'm really not. And I'm very private.
That's going to give us a really interesting angle to talk about in terms of ambition in being introverted. But just give us a real like whistle stop, like tour through ways. Because you mentioned there you were a makeup artist, and you and I got to know each other when you were kind of senior leadering in
Hmm.
sales floors and stuff like that. So just give us a real kind of whistle stop. I've been there, and then what led you to launching your business, Social Storie today.
Oh my gosh. My kids always say that I'm like Miss Rabbit from Peppa Pig who has every job under the sun. And my parents were saying this to me last night. They're like, "Oh, remember when you did that?" So I started out as a makeup artist, but I also had three other jobs working in a pharmacy, freelancing. I worked on a strawberry farm. I have pretty much done everything managing a strawberry farm. At 15 years old, I was managing the whole shebang on my own in school holidays. I then went off to be a fundraiser for 15 years, led fundraising teams and organizations and mentored a lot of people. I became obsessed with technology. I ran two Salesforce consultancies for 5 years and then uh, done a load of different jobs in between, advising IKEA on food sustainability, lifelong learner. So there's pretty much nothing I
Mhm.
can't do. If you look at my CV Well, actually, a lot of the jobs I've done aren't even on my CV, or on my LinkedIn. But now I run a full time. I run a storytelling company, as I said. So yeah, I've done so many different things.
Doing a lot of things, fashion. That's awesome. Okay. So now a lot of the women, we talk about struggles that a lot of us share around ambition. A lot of the women that I work with have big ideas or ambitions, or they come to me with big ideas or ambitions for whether it's for their career, for their business, but they struggle to follow through. And not because they're not capable. Most of the time we find out they're absolutely capable, but it's usually down to some kind of fear of judgment, or they're second guessing themselves, or they're worried about burnout, or they hit overwhelm because there's so much to do. Now, I know from conversations that you and I have had that people think you've just kind of started Social Storie, but instead it was an idea that had been burning for you for a number of years. What's been your experience about of having ideas and ambition, but not necessarily following through or second guessing yourself? What's been your experience about, especially thinking about where you are now with Social Storie?
Yeah, Social Storie wasn't an overnight success. I had been planning it in my head for 15 years since I did a talk on Humans of New York, which is on YouTube still.
That's far.
Everyone loves that talk. And it was the first time I'd ever spoken in public. I was so nervous that at the interval, I almost walked out. Every time I go past the Museum of London, I feel the same nerves as you were. So yeah, it wasn't an overnight success, but I did work out the building blocks of what I needed to do over those 15 years, subconsciously and sometimes consciously, how to be a successful entrepreneur. But it wasn't my first business. I'd had 3 other businesses that didn't work out for various lifestyle reasons, or I just got kind of a bit bored of it. And so I'd had other businesses when I was much younger, when my son was a baby and a toddler. Without realizing it, I guess I worked out the methods and the building blocks for how to create a successful business.
Yeah.
One of the things that I realized very early on was I needed to know how to be able to talk to anybody from any background, whether that be an A-list celebrity, which happens very frequently, or somebody that may be homeless. I believe that everyone is the same.
Yeah.
I treat everybody exactly the same. When I'm working with very famous people, I'll often joke and say, "So what do you do again?" I did this with the Liverpool Football Club, and I was like, "So what do you do?" And they were like, "Oh, I play football." I was like, "Who for?" Like, just down the park?" And they're like, "No, I'm the captain of the England team." I was like, "Okay, I don't care about that. Let's talk about the project we're going to work on."
Yeah.
Because I knew that I needed to become very skilled at being able to talk to anybody. I ended up mentoring over 450 people for free over 10 years. That enabled
Being one of them.
That was how we met.
Yeah.
And that was how we met.
Yeah.
Because people fascinate me. There is nothing more fascinating to me than people. Just getting the train the last few weeks back to London, I met a guy who was a serious criminal that had just come out of prison. He looked terrifying, and I kind of sat near him on purpose because I was intrigued, just like walking through the carriage. I was like, he looks like he could kill me in a second, but I want to talk to him. And it turned out that his best friend's baby had unfortunately died in its sleep, and he was like crying his eyes out. And we ended up having this amazing conversation for 2 hours on the train. He told me all about the horrific things he'd done and how remorseful he was. I ended up then a week or 2 later sitting opposite an army veteran who talked to me for hours about his PTSD and his life. Long story short, I knew there were certain building blocks I needed as a leader and a business owner. One of them was I knew that I knew that I needed to learn how to actually lead a company. So I would always put my hand up for things, even if there was no extra money at the end of it, to get experience. And that was what I did also in other jobs, because I know that they're all skills that I needed to perfect.
And clearly, from what you're saying about the people that you connected with on the train, you have that vibe where people want to tell you their story, which obviously worked well, given what you did. So tell me about what it was that helped you make this leap. If this has been in your mind, like say subconsciously or consciously, you've been building this idea for this business for the last however many years, what helped you to follow through to take that leap?
I walked through the front door of my house and vomited everywhere. at a time in my life. But the day before I decided to launch and follow through on Social Storie, I had been in an environment that was so stressful with lots of different things happening that I was just like, I want to be the owner of my own destiny. And I was like, this is not normal to be walking in after being away for a week abroad, vomiting with stress. I was like, this is not normal.
Definitely.
I know that I'm somebody that hits overwhelm on a regular basis. I've been burnt out before, but I regularly hit overwhelm because my mind goes 100 miles an hour. All of my clients say to me, we can never keep up with you. And I'm like, I know it's, but I've realized that I also need sometimes to spend time like on my own and not talk to anybody. People often think I'm massively extroverted, and I can be at times, but I also know that sometimes I just need to not talk to anybody. The day that I realized that a few of my colleague friends that I really respect, and I would even class them as mentors, have often said to me, you're unemployable because you build people's businesses so fast and you make people so much money, then either they don't need you anymore or they start not valuing the gifts that you bring because you can just do this stuff in your sleep. And you work really hard, so people don't always treat you very well. One of my mentors, who's a guy, said men are extremely intimidated by you. And I was like, wow. And then when he started to explain it, I was like, oh my God, maybe that is true. I was like, maybe that's in every aspect of my life. I was horrified, but at the same time, oh, interesting.
Yeah, but that's more of a reflection on them because they're not used to women who are capable, ambitious, or are able to follow through. The societal expectation that women should be quietly confident and quietly successful. And
Also,
just because you don't fall into that, you want people around you who aren't intimidated by that.
I'm not somebody that's pushing stuff in people's faces. I'm very secure in my skills, but sometimes I'm always looking for people that I can learn from. And I think there's a lot of people a million times better at a lot of things than me. That when my mentor, Tim, said this to me, I was like, wow, okay, that's interesting. Maybe
Yeah.
that's a theme in my life. Who knows?
Okay. You got to this point where you hit burnout and overwhelm in your corporate job. It was too much. You're like, right, it isn't enough. I'm moving forward with my idea, with my plan. You launched your business. I remember you and I had a voice call or something. It was literally that week. And you'd already almost completely sold out. We had loads of conversation. It was literally that week. But when we caught up the other day, you said you landed like 200K of business in 7 days, which
Mhm.
is huge. And I think it just shows that validation and everything that you've been building up, like contacts, networks, how to build a business, how to build something that people want, and actually just following through, being clear on your value. You said that was like a year's worth of business that you were secured in. That must have been so exciting knowing that you had taken that leap, followed through on your ambition, your ideas, and it paid off. But, you'd also been honest about the facts in that conversation that it wasn't all smooth sailing. But what helped you moved from that idea to action when you first launched? So you got through the door, you had that moment, and then you were like, right, it's happening now. What helped you move from that, right, now is the time to actually reaching out to those clients, pitching your business idea and getting there?
So the night that I came back and I was feeling really unwell and I was physically ill, it wasn't that I was overwhelmed or burnt out or even like I just had enough of that job. It was just that values driven and the environment I was in did not align with my values. That for me is always the biggest thing in everything that I do. Every aspect of my life is all about how somebody makes you feel, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was that night or the following day. I have a really dear friend called Craig. He was launching a business around the same time I was thinking about Social Storie. And he was like, you could do this. And I was like, who would hire me? I know I've got a really good idea, but can I do this? I'm a single mom. I have two kids to think about. If I don't make any money, what am I going to do? So there was all this kind of stress. And my friend was like, if anyone can do this, I know it's you. So just do it. We made a bet with each other because we were starting businesses at the same time that whoever got to 100K first would take the other one to New York. And I'm also really competitive, like insanely competitive, not with sport or anything like that, with myself.
Mhm.
If someone tells me I can't do something or I'm competing, I will find a way to do it. Like in every aspect. Once I went to Slimming World after I'd had my son and I was overweight and I heard about Slimmer of the Week and I lost 12 stone in a week. I was just like, I'm like, it doesn't matter what it is. If I want to do something, I'll do it. And I'm the same with my clients now. If they've got goals, I will make sure they are hit. They're going to hit their goals. My friend Craig and I had this stupid bet. And that night I sat for 4 hours and built my website. And then the following day, I put my headphones in to do a supermarket shop in Morrison's and rang 3 people that I was like, oh, it's like, weekend, people will be free. Pushing my trolley around. I was like, I just wanted to let you know what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. Would you be interested? And whilst I was walking around Morrison's, I signed 3 clients. I got back and I remember vividly, I had all of the groceries and frozen stuff all over the kitchen floor. I remember being sat at the kitchen table writing what I thought was a good contract to my lawyer, Jonathan. He's amazing, sorted them all out. I remember writing everything down that I'd spoken to people about while I was doing my grocery shop. All of a sudden, in a day, I had 3 clients. And by the end of the 7 days, I had 7 clients. Or was it 8? I think it may have been 8, actually. 8 clients in 8 days. And yeah, I'm kind of saying it out loud.
It
I
sounds
don't want people to be like, oh, look at,
no, go on.
I don't want, it's awkward for me to talk about for a long time. It's 18 months since that point now. I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't want people to be, well, look at her, like flaunting her success. It makes me feel really awkward talking about it. But then I went on to do this for 6 other businesses, friends' businesses, Craig's business, my friend. And I realized that my methodology, the strategy I could implement for any business based on all of the years' experience and blueprints that I built, made a lot of people a lot of money in a short space of time.
And it's funny, how a lot of women are like, oh, I don't want people to think this about me if I talk about my success. But I don't think men would feel the same way about it. We're allowed to be proud and share how we have moved through something or when that success comes. But I think sometimes we find it hard to own that or we worry about what people are going to think. Let's come to the main lesson content of this idea of becoming more ambitious and following through. We've talked a lot around your angle, but what would you say if we think about balancing ambition with boundaries and, overwhelm? Because I think there's this idea that if you're ambitious and you're following through, then you're probably a hard worker. You're normally a very driven person. What have you learned so far about balancing ambition with your own capacity? How do you know when to push and when to pause? Or is that something you're still learning?
I am really not good at this. This is the weakest part of me. I am all or nothing with everything in my life, which I am super organized, but I know when to pause when I don't feel it and when I'm not excited. In the early days, I'll always remember that first invoice being paid. I remember the first time I saw 10,000 in the business bank account and I was like, oh my, every morning I woke up and I was excited about the fact that it was happening. It's not like I take it for granted now. I love every single one of my clients. Working at the pace that I do and being there for people in the way that I choose to be there for people, I sometimes feel that the color drains from the projects. And I'm like, okay, something needs to be put on pause for a bit so that I can feel it again. I felt like this for about 3, 4 weeks last month. And I was like, I'm still loving the work. But I was like, something's missing.
Yeah.
And something had happened to make me feel that way. I was due to go to a big weekend event at Hyde Park and I just said, I'm not going. I sold my ticket. And I said, I'm just going to spend the day going to places in London that inspire me and go what I call shopping for inspiration. And for me, those moments where I need to pause are either not speaking to anybody. And I mean, unless it's my kids that live with me, obviously, I don't just blurt them, but I'm not speaking to anybody for like a few days and being really grounded, barefoot in my garden, just thinking and processing stuff, or it's being thrown into a few places where I know I'm going to be like super inspired.
Yeah.
And there was a few places that I went to in London that did that for me a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible.
And I think I know we had this discussion the other day, like I say, that there is that balance between wanting to do a good job because so many of us women who are ambitious in their careers or their businesses are wanting to deliver above and beyond, or we have really big visions or big goals that we want to hit. And I think it's about coming at it from the right place because we do only have a finite amount of time and energy. I think it's just making sure that the thing where you are working for it and you are pushing towards it, if you're feeling that overwhelm or that disconnect when it's just not fun or it's just not feeling right, those are the times where you don't want to just push through for the sake of it, of like, oh, I need to follow through on this because this is something that I've set out, because actually it might not be the right thing for you or your client or your company or whoever it is that you're working for. Absolutely. And something that you said earlier about being values driven, but also if it's not feeling right, if it's not feeling fun anymore, I think one of the things that I always try to do, and I know you do as well, is staying connected to your why. Because you said before, like when we had a chat the other day, one of the key turning points for you, and certainly when balancing that overwhelm or lots of things that you're doing is like, what am I actually doing this for? Like actually
Mhm.
asking yourself that question. How do you reconnect? You said you find somewhere you spend time grounding, you find somewhere that's inspiring to you. Is there anything else that you do to reconnect when your ambition or your goals or just your work is getting overwhelming?
Oh my gosh, there's so many different things. It depends on the mood and what's causing it. I often look at pictures of my kids when they were babies. I was 19 when I had my son. I've just turned 20, but I was 19 when I was pregnant with him. I don't have pictures of my kids in my house on the walls. I actually find them so emotional to look at. I have Polaroids of them on my desk and in my bedroom.
Yeah.
But I often reflect on how far I've come, and that's quite inspiring. I think the why thing is really important. I've never been money orientated at all. It was never starting Social Story was never about money. It was about, I guess, 15 years prior, I'd done the Healers of New York talk. And for me at the time as a fundraiser, I was really passionate and always have been passionate about telling stories that
Mm.
change someone's perception or the way someone thinks about something
Yeah.
or changes the world in a small way. And recently I had an experience where it really all came to a head because the thing is what I've actually learned is I'm actually really, really good at making like strategies and money. If someone came to me and said, I need to make 300,000 this year or 500,000 or 1 million, and if I don't, I'm going to have to fire 40 people.
Mm.
I'd like tell me everything. I'd ask questions and I'd build a strategy and I'd be able to pretty much, I'm almost certain to make that happen because I've done it now for 8 different businesses, mortgage advisors, financial advisors, expedition companies, travel companies, like friends of mine that have got businesses, so many different businesses, and just put all these jigsaw pieces together to know how to do that.
Mhm.
But the thing is, it's not about that for me because I recently got paid on a project where I had been filming people with severe disabilities and talking about their lives. I can't talk about the project 'cause it's under NDA, but I'd been filming these incredible people and their stories, and I got paid on the job, and it was fine. Then 7 months later, I got a call from the company to say that they weren't going to use the films because they no longer align with their strategy. I was so upset that for like 3 hours, I was reeling inside.
Mm.
I was so angry and upset that I ended up speaking to one of my friends in San Francisco. And then I spoke to my mentor, who I call the computer. My friend, the computer, is like ChatGPT, but a real person. There is nothing this guy does not know. He is the most insanely talented person I've ever met. And he's just incredible. When I was talking to the computer, his real name's Tim, he said to me, did you get paid? Like he was going through a checklist. He was like, did you get paid on the projects? Yeah, I got paid in January. It's like, okay. He went through this checklist and he said, the thing that always comes through in your work whenever we speak. And I was like, what's that? And I was so angry. I was doing loops around where I live for 2 hours on the phone with him. It's like 9:30 at night, 10:30 at night. Then it was 11 at night. It's dark. I'm walking around on my own. And he just said to me, you're not in this to make money. You're in this because you wanted those people's stories to be told. And it's an injustice to you. All of the achievements they've had won't get heard by the world. I said to him, I'd rather give the money back to that company and me own the stories and me be able to put them up on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So these people's stories get heard. And I believe that stories change the world. I really believe that.
Just coming back to that why, isn't it? Building something that reflects who you are and what you're really driven by, as opposed to what you think you should achieve, or building it for success or income sake. It's like, what is it that you really care about? If you're aligned with something you really care about, then you're more likely to follow for it. And you can balance that self-worth and confidence bit, which is nice. It's a great link to that next question, which is bringing it back to why we're here, around self-worth and confidence. How do you see self-worth, or tell me your thoughts about how self-worth either fuels or blocks ambition? Self-worth is going to show up in all of this, especially for women who are trying to do big things, but might not feel like they're enough or ready. How do you see self-worth fueling or blocking ambition? What's your experiences of that?
It's a hard one because my sister always says, and like family members always say to me, oh my gosh, you're amazing at everything. And what they don't realize is I only do the things that I know I'm good at. I don't do anything that I think I suck at or I'm like 50% good at. I only do things that I know I'm really good at.
Yeah.
And so I chose a business where I'd seen that I was better than anyone else at telling stories. There's no one that I've met other than maybe Louis Theroux and a few celebrity people that can tell a story how I tell a story and see the impact of the go-to-market and the money coming into my clients' accounts. I think choosing something that you're amazing at is really important and something that you enjoy, because if you enjoy it, then you're going to keep investing in yourself and you're going to feel good.
Yeah.
Self-work comes in many different forms. I am not going to pretend that I feel absolutely amazing every single day and I feel on top of the world every day. Of course I don't. There are days where I doubt myself. There are days where I think, why on earth have I done this? There are days where things don't go to plan. There are days where I don't feel great. I feel unwell. I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's only me to do this business. What I do to stay focused and to feel good about myself is to do small things that are meaningful to myself, whatever that might be. This is quite a big example. This is like the biggest example that I have. Throughout my whole career, I have always worked really hard. If you ask any of my clients to explain what I do and how I work, they'd say, she works so hard. A few of my clients tell me off for how hard I work, but I love it. And one of my clients, let's call her E, she always says to me, when was the last time you took a break? When was the last time you had a full weekend off? She knows that the answer is never. I work a lot. I was in New York last November for work and I was unwell at this time. I needed to have surgery, but I didn't realize it because I've been so focused on work. I'm not glorifying working yourself into the ground. I just really love working. It's one of the things that makes me really happy. I went for a walk an hour and a half before I was due to get in the cab to go back to the airport to fly home. I've always been obsessed with jewelry. Before I started Social Storie, there was 3 different businesses on the cards. I was going to open a restaurant that specialized in allergy-free food because I've got a ton of allergies and I can never eat out. I was going to start Social Storie, or I was going to become a gemologist and do a full degree in gemology at Birmingham University. I chose Social Storie because I thought this is the one that I'm the best at. The 2 I've not got any experience in, but I'd still love to do those things. I was walking down to go and see the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center and I walked through the Diamond District. Big mistake for me. Big mistake. And I saw this window display full of insane diamonds. And I was like, oh my gosh, that to me was like a Christmas tree in itself. Oh yeah. And I don't own a lot of jewelry. All of the jewelry that I have is what I'm actually wearing now. I have 1 necklace, some rings, 2 sets of earrings, and that's it. That's literally it. Anyway, I was walking through, saw this ring and had to go in and try it on. And I actually have it on now. I bought it and didn't make it to Rockefeller because I was going to miss my cab. When I left the jewelry store, I felt sick. And for 3 weeks, every time I looked at this ring, I was like, I can't believe I bought myself something like that, because I'd been a single mom and a mom since I was 19. So everything has always gone on the kids, which I've always wanted for them. I've never regretted a penny I spent on my children. But I felt so guilty about it that I actually thought about getting a flight back to New York to return it. I see self-worth, and it's kind of like a reminder of how hard I worked and what I was able to provide myself with. It's a material thing, and I'm not really a materialistic person, to be fair. I get loads of comments on it.
A symbol, isn't it? And like you say, it's about being able to be proud of yourself and buy yourself something that is indulgent, that is in recognition of you doing something that you love. And I think that's key. What I'm hearing here in terms of that link with self-worth is like, do things that you know you're good at, because that's where you're going to feel like you're enough. You're going to have that confidence to follow through, and it's going to be grounded in not proving, but something that you know and that you enjoy and that's connected to your why. Also being able to own that success in whatever way that looks like to you. This is something that I love, that I know about, that I bought for myself as a recognition of this ambition that I have, that I followed through, that I've done well. Something that you love for doing something that you love. Does that make sense?
I know when I'm typing, when I'm working all day, honestly, it's like a full-time reminder.
Yeah.
Look at what you can do if you work
look at
hard
what
enough.
you can achieve. Yeah, no, I love it. Okay, so coming then, so two last things. We always do our lesson takeaway. This is like the one shift to remember. And I know you could give us a million things. I know you hate sticking to one, but if our listeners were to take away one mindset shift about ambition or following through, what would you want it to be? That the one thing they could come away with today is thinking about ambition. They've got a big idea in their head. What's the one thing that you would want to come away from this episode, listening to this episode, that they would remember?
Work out what you're amazing at and what you enjoy, and be known for it. I think there's power in being niche and being the best at a specific thing, and also refine and refine and refine that thing until people are knocking on your door to work with you.
Excellent advice. Find the thing that you do better than most people. Get even better at it. Love it. Okay. And we also give our listeners a little bit of homework that is actually fun and useful to do. What one small action or reflection or prompt that they could try this week to help them reconnect with ambition or move something forward? What's something practical that you would give them to take away and try and do?
It's kind of like a piece of homework from what I just said there. I would say take out a notepad or on your phone and write a list of the things that you do really well, or ask someone, what do I do that's really good?
Yeah.
And then think of 5 companies who could really benefit from that. That helps to form your go-to-market and your proposition. It's a bit like me being in the supermarket, calling people and being like, hey, I'm doing this. Like, what do you think? Oh, where do I sign? Really understanding what you're really good at. Write a list of what you're really good at and 5 companies or organizations or people that might buy your products that would benefit from that.
Yeah. Ultimate advice. Thank you, Laurie. I think I've been writing some of the key things you've been talking about how you've been moving towards that. And I think that is absolutely the key and the takeaway. I'm hearing, like, say yes to opportunities to help you grow, do more things or learn new stuff. Use your network and actually ask people. You didn't just wait around or wait until you were perfect or set up a Zoom call. You were just walking around and I've got this idea, I'm running with it now. Gave them a call and secured, it just goes to show, by taking action and asking, be driven by your why, do the things that you know you're good at and refine it and take action. I love it.
It's so funny you say that about Just Say Yes, because Snow Patrol are my favorite band. I actually have in my office a huge piece of artwork, and it's a sound wave of one of their songs. And it's a sound wave of Just Say Yes. It's a reminder to just get on with stuff. So yeah, it's interesting you say that.
Oh, very timely. Laura, it's been awesome to chat with you. I'm sure people are going to take a lot away from today. So thank you so much for being our guest teacher today. We will share some links to Laura, anything that she wants to share, her LinkedIn profile or whatever, in the show notes in case you want to find out more about her and what she does. Absolutely awesome to have you. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you for having me. If anyone out there is struggling or wants to send me a question or some advice, I still do mentoring. I'd love to help other women. I think the biggest challenge in business is not having a mentor or role model or people around you. And I think coaching and mentoring is so important. So when you became a coach, I was incredibly happy to see that. I think that is one of the biggest challenges right now.
Well, thank you for offering that. But yeah, that is us for today's lesson. Thank you for listening, everyone.